This is not just a headline. It's a horrifying reality. When Burkina Faso's leader, Ibrahim Traoré, descended into an illegal gold mine during a surprise inspection, what he found 700 meters underground left even his military escorts speechless. Dozens of children, some as young as 10, working in complete darkness, risking their lives for crumbs. But what happened next shocked the nation, and it's something the international media isn't showing you. Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you'll witness a moment so powerful, so unfiltered, it might just change how you see Africa and global politics forever. Ibrahim Traoré was finishing his morning briefing when he received word about an accident at the gold mine. At the time, he didn't realize this was just the beginning, and that once he uncovered the truth, there would be no turning back. Inside the presidential palace in Ouagadougou, the early morning air was still cool, and the day's intense heat was not yet in full force. Traoré sat at his desk, reviewing security updates from the northern provinces, where extremist threats demanded constant attention. 8 months into his presidency, he had established a steady routine: security briefings at dawn, economic discussions mid-morning, and diplomatic matters in the afternoon. The rhythm of leadership in a nation still searching for its future. Defense Minister Kabore entered without knocking, a breach of protocol that instantly signaled urgency. "Mr. President, there's been an incident at the Busura mine," he said, sliding a preliminary report across the desk. 17 confirmed dead. More may still be trapped underground. Traoré scanned the document. The Busura mine, run by Goldtech International, a French-Canadian consortium, was the country's largest gold producer, responsible for nearly 40% of Burkina Faso's official gold exports. The report described a localized explosion and a partial tunnel collapse in the mine's deepest sector. "Rescue operations?" Traoré asked, already reaching for his phone. "Goldtech has deployed their emergency response team," Kabore replied. "They've requested that military and government personnel stay away so as not to complicate their efforts." Something in Kabore's voice made Traoré pause. "You don't sound convinced." The defense minister hesitated, glanced at the door, and lowered his voice. "It's probably nothing, sir, but my cousin works security at Busura. He called me directly, off the record, says Goldtech officials were destroying documents before the rescue team even arrived." Traoré set the report down. His military instincts kicked in. After 8 months in office, he had learned to trust those instincts. Something wasn't adding up. "Arrange transport," he said, standing. "I'm going to Busura." "Sir," Kabore said cautiously, "Goldtech has explicitly asked—" "They don't run this country, Minister," Traoré interrupted. "At least they shouldn't." Kabore nodded, a faint smile of approval crossing his face. "I'll have a helicopter ready in 30 minutes. As Kabore left, Traoré moved to the window, looking out over a waking Ouagadougou, a city of contrasts where colonial architecture stood alongside modern buildings and traditional markets competed with foreign-owned businesses. The presidential palace itself, a relic of French colonialism, stood in stark contrast to the poverty that plagued much of the nation. Burkina Faso was rich in gold, the fastest-growing gold producer in the world over the past decade. Yet somehow this mineral wealth had never translated into prosperity for its people. The equation didn't balance. As a former mathematics teacher before his military career, Traoré had always been troubled by equations that didn't make sense. Just then, his aide entered with an update, adding another variable to the already troubling situation. "Mr. President, the French ambassador is urgently requesting a meeting before you depart for Busura." Did he say why? Only that it concerns diplomatic protocols during industrial accidents involving international corporations. Traoré checked his watch. "Tell him I've already left. We can discuss protocols after I've seen the situation myself." 2 hours later, Traoré's helicopter neared the Busura mining complex in the country's northeastern region. From above, the site looked massive, an industrial sprawl cut into the arid landscape. Processing plants, administrative buildings, and workers' housing spread out over several square kilometers. At the center stood the main mine entrance, now surrounded by emergency crews. As the helicopter circled to land, Traoré noticed private security setting up a perimeter, keeping the press and locals at bay. His military aide pointed out another helicopter already on the pad, this one bearing French diplomatic markings. Interesting, Traoré remarked. The French ambassador arrives before the president of Burkina Faso. As they landed, a group of executives in hard hats rushed to greet them. Leading them was Philippe Marron, Goldtech's regional director, a tall, silver-haired Frenchman who carried the confident air of someone not used to being questioned. Beside him stood Jean-Claude Laval, the French ambassador, whose presence confirmed Traoré's suspicions. This was no ordinary accident. President Traoré, Marron said with a forced smile. This is unexpected. We're in the middle of a delicate rescue effort. Then I won't take much of your time, Traoré replied. I'm here to observe the rescue and speak with any survivors. Ambassador Laval stepped forward. Mr. President, perhaps we could brief you inside the administrative building. The site itself is dangerous, not suitable for non-experts. Traoré noted how polished that response was. Ambassador, I wasn't aware my safety was a matter of diplomatic concern. Laval's smile tightened. France has deep expertise in mining. We're simply assisting one of our corporations during this emergency. Before Traoré could respond, a commotion broke out near the mine entrance. A stretcher was being carried out. Without hesitation, Traoré walked toward it, ignoring the executive's protests. The miner on the stretcher was barely conscious, his face streaked with coal-black dust and tear tracks. A medic was checking his vitals and administering oxygen. Traoré knelt beside him. What's your name, brother? The miner's eyes fluttered open, slowly recognizing Traoré's face. Ouedraogo, he whispered through the mask. Moussa Ouedraogo. What happened down there, Moussa? The miner's eyes flicked nervously toward the executives nearby. Then he gripped Traoré's hand tightly. Not Section 7, he rasped. They said Section 7 collapsed. It was Section 12. They're lying. Marin stepped forward quickly. The man is in shock. He's confused. Section 12 is inactive, under maintenance. Traoré held the miner's gaze. Why lie about the section? Moussa's voice dropped to a whisper. The children. They don't want you to see the children. Before Traoré could ask more, the stretcher was rushed away. He turned to Marin, whose calm expression had started to crack. I want to see Section 12, Traoré said. Not, Maron replied. The mine is unstable. We can't guarantee your safety. I wasn't asking permission. Laval stepped in, more firmly this time. Mr. President, there are serious legal risks. The agreement between your government and Goldtech limits state intervention during corporate emergencies. Show me where it says that, Traoré challenged, because I don't remember signing away my right to inspect a disaster on Burkina Faso soil. Silence followed, tension mounted. Traoré's security detail inched closer, hands near their weapons. Goldtech's private security mirrored them. Finally, Maron softened his tone. Perhaps a compromise. We can provide surveillance footage from all areas, full transparency, without the risk. I appreciate that, Traoré said, and I'll review it after I've seen Section 12 with my own eyes. Realizing the president would not back down, Maron reluctantly ordered an engineer to escort them. As they prepared the elevator, Laval made one last attempt. Your predecessor understood the importance of corporate autonomy. That's what keeps investment flowing. Traoré looked him in the eye. My predecessor is no longer president, and I'm beginning to understand why. The elevator dropped quickly, a deep descent into the earth. The cage rattled. The air thickened. Traoré had spent time in bunkers and tunnels during his military days, but nothing like this. The engineer, a nervous young Frenchman named Gerard, explained as they passed deeper levels. Section 12 is an exploratory zone. It's inactive at the moment. Then it should be safe to visit, Traoré replied. Gerard hesitated. It's just a procedure. I'm familiar with procedures, Traoré said calmly. I was a soldier before I was a president. They stopped 700 meters down. The doors opened to a dim tunnel, reinforced with steel, hot and thick with dust and the scent of explosives. This is Section 8, Gerard said, checking a tablet. The collapse happened in Section 7, just ahead. We shouldn't go any farther. Captain, Traoré asked his aide, what section did the miner mention? Section 12, Mr. President. And where is Section 12 from here? Gerard shifted uncomfortably. Farther east, but I don't have authorization to take you there. Traoré studied the map on the wall. Seems simple enough. We'll find it ourselves. Sir, I can't allow that. Captain, Traoré cut in, make sure Mr. Girard stays comfortable while we proceed. The captain understood, positioning himself between Girard and any communications gear. Traoré and two security officers continued, following the map through narrowing tunnels, eventually reaching a second elevator marked Sections 9 to 14, authorized personnel only. Using Girard's borrowed access card, they descended again. When the doors opened, they stepped into a tunnel different from the others, with weak supports and dim lighting. This area hadn't been built for standard operations or routine inspections. Following the markers, they made their way to Section 12. The tunnel showed no evidence of a recent collapse or any rescue efforts. Instead, they came upon a solid steel door, secured by an electronic lock. The borrowed access card failed to open it. Break it down, Traoré ordered. The security team hesitated for only a moment before combining their strength to force the door. With a loud metallic groan, the mechanism gave way. What they found inside would stay with Ibrahim Traoré forever. Section 12 wasn't a mine, it was a labor camp. In the vast chamber beyond the door, dozens of makeshift sleeping mats were strewn across the rocky floor. Empty food containers and plastic water bottles littered the space. Most disturbing of all were the small helmets and hand tools, sized for children. My God, one of the officers whispered. Traoré walked through the chamber, recording everything on his phone. In one corner, they discovered a logbook. The entries were cold and clinical, detailing productivity by age group. Children as young as 9 were listed, along with daily gold extraction quotas. They're using kids to reach the narrowest seams, Traoré said grimly. Spots grown men can't access. As they explored a side tunnel, voices echoed down the shaft. Traoré and his team quickly hid. Moments later, a group of Gold Tech security guards entered, led by a supervisor speaking urgently into a radio. The site is secure, he reported. All evidence has been removed as instructed. The president won't find anything. Any sign of the missing workers? Asked a voice, Marchand's on the other end. Negative. After the blast, at least 15 children escaped into the emergency tunnels. We're still searching. Find them, Marchand snapped. They must not speak to anyone. Understood? Traoré had heard enough. He stepped from the shadows flanked by armed officers. I believe those children are now under my protection, he said. The Gold Tech guards froze, then slowly raised their hands. The radio crackled with Marchand's increasingly desperate questions. Your boss has much to answer for, Traoré added, taking the radio. Mr. Marchand, prepare for a very difficult conversation. Above ground, the scene had changed. News of the president's discovery had leaked, drawing crowds, locals and family members demanding answers. Many were parents of children who had vanished after being promised vocational training by Gold Tech. Marchand and the French ambassador were trying to leave when Traoré emerged from the mine. With him was damning evidence. Photographs, documents, and, most powerful of all, 3 terrified children who had been hiding in a ventilation shaft. Arrest them, Traoré ordered, pointing to Marchand and the company executives. They'll face charges including child exploitation, human trafficking, and criminal negligence resulting in death. Ambassador Laval stepped forward, furious. You can't do this. These men have diplomatic protection under our mining agreements. Show me where child slavery is protected, Traoré replied coldly. This mine operated a forced labor camp on Burkina soil. Diplomatic immunity doesn't cover that. As the executives were led away in handcuffs, Traoré addressed the crowd. Many filming, the footage streaming live across social media. Today, he began, we have uncovered a crime that cannot be forgiven. The children of Burkina Faso were forced to work in inhumane conditions just to extract gold that never benefited our people. He pointed toward the mine. The real explosion wasn't caused by gas or equipment failure. It was a group of enslaved children trying to escape, and instead of helping them, this company tried to bury the evidence. That night, Traoré stayed at the site, overseeing the rescue operation. By dawn, 23 children had been found alive in various hiding places. 5 more had died, either in the explosion or from injuries sustained during their escape attempt. Each child had a harrowing story. Most came from poor villages, lured with promises of education and good wages. Instead, they were forced into underground labor, crawling through tight shafts with hand tools to extract gold. "How long has this been happening?" Traoré asked a mining engineer who had turned whistleblower after witnessing the rescue. "Years," the man admitted. "Not just here. Most of the big mines operate like this, though maybe not as bad. It's an open secret." "An open secret," Traoré echoed. "And my government knew nothing?" The man looked uncomfortable. "Your predecessors, there were arrangements. Officials were paid to look away." In the days that followed, the full scope of the horror was revealed. International inspectors found similar practices at other gold tech operations. Children were routinely used to reach narrow gold seams. Documents showed a systematic program of exploitation. Financial records revealed the final outrage. While gold tech declared modest profits to tax authorities, their internal books showed billions in unreported gold, smuggled out of the country using diplomatic channels. Traoré called an emergency cabinet meeting. Some ministers urged caution. "These companies provide jobs," the finance minister said. "They build infrastructure. We depend on them." "Jobs for whom?" Traoré countered. "Adults risking their lives for poverty wages? Children enslaved in tunnels? And what infrastructure? Roads and power lines leading to the mines? Nothing for our people." The foreign minister warned against alienating Western powers. "I didn't become president to be pragmatic about child slavery," Traoré replied. "Prepare for nationalization, all of it." 1 week later, Ibrahim Traoré addressed the nation from the presidential palace. Dressed in his military fatigues, he looked directly into the camera. "For too long," he said, "we've been told that foreign companies bring prosperity. We need their capital to develop our resources, yet our people remain poor, while our gold builds towers in Paris and Toronto." He held up a small piece of gold ore. "This was found by a child who should have been in school, who should have had a future. Instead, he was underground, working in darkness to make others rich." He paused. "Today, I am announcing the immediate nationalization of all gold mining operations in Burkina Faso. Foreign companies will have 30 days to hand over control to our National Resource Authority. They will be fairly compensated for legitimate investments, but not for stolen wealth." He explained the plan. Burkina engineers and workers would run the mines. Revenues would be directed to healthcare, education, and infrastructure, with full transparency and oversight. "This won't be easy," he admitted. "There will be resistance. There will be economic consequences. But continuing to sacrifice our children for foreign profit is not an option." The international backlash was immediate. Western governments condemned the move. Financial institutions predicted economic collapse. France recalled its ambassador and froze Burkina Faso's assets. "This violates our agreements," the French foreign minister said. "Nations cannot rewrite contracts at will." But Traoré's response was already clear. "We will not bargain over the lives of our children." But something unexpected happened. Neighboring countries, Mali, Niger, and Guinea, publicly voiced their support. China and Russia offered technical assistance to help manage the newly nationalized mines. Most significantly, the people of Burkina Faso stood behind the decision, united in a wave of patriotism not seen in a generation. When Western banks suspended financial transactions, communities across the country began organizing alternative economies. And when international aid was threatened, villages pooled their resources to sustain schools and clinics. Ethnic and regional divisions faded as a new spirit of national pride swept through the country. Of course, the transition wasn't smooth. Some foreign engineers and technicians left, taking valuable expertise with them. Specialized equipment became harder to obtain, and production temporarily dropped. But President Traoré had anticipated this. He launched accelerated training programs, calling back Burkina engineers from abroad with passionate appeals and competitive pay. He forged new supply chains through non-Western allies. Most importantly, he remained honest with the people, openly acknowledging the short-term sacrifices needed to gain long-term freedom. 3 months later, Traoré invited international journalists to visit the Bussoura mine. Now fully operated by Burkina engineers and workers, the site had undergone a dramatic transformation. Safety standards had improved, workers received fair wages, and nearby a school had been built, funded by a portion of the mine's profits. where former child laborers now studied. This, Traoré said to the press, gesturing to the modest school building, is what we call the Golden Palace, not because it's luxurious, but because it reflects the true value of our gold, the future of our children. A French reporter raised his hand. Mr. President, Western economists say Burkina Faso's mining industry will collapse without foreign expertise. What's your response? Traoré smiled. You mean the same expertise that built child labor camps? I think we'll be fine. He pointed to the mine through the window. The same Burkina who did the real work before are doing it now. The difference is who benefits. Another journalist asked about frozen assets in European banks. How will you survive these sanctions? Traoré didn't hesitate. We remember what real wealth is. It's not digits in foreign bank accounts. It's the resources in our soil, the skills of our people, our right to decide our future. The press conference ended, but Traoré stayed at the school, watching the children play. Children who once mined gold, now reading and writing. The contrast was stark, from darkness to light, from exploitation to opportunity. One boy approached, around 11 years old, scars still visible on his face. Mr. President, he said, my father works in the mine now. He says before, the gold made white men rich. Now it makes Burkina Faso strong. Is that true? Traoré knelt to meet the boy's gaze. What's your name? Thomas, sir. After Thomas, Sankara Traoré smiled at the mention of the revolutionary leader. Well, Thomas, your father is right. But our real strength isn't just in the gold. It's in knowing that it belongs to us, and in deciding for ourselves how to use it. The boy nodded thoughtfully. When I grow up, I want to be an engineer, to find better ways to get the gold, so nobody has to go underground. Then study hard, Traoré told him. Burkina Faso will need engineers like you. As he left the school, Traoré reflected on how it all began, with a single mining accident report crossing his desk. Back then, he had no idea it would spark a national awakening. When he saw the truth, there was no going back. The path ahead wouldn't be easy. Western powers weren't going to surrender their grip on Africa's resources without a fight. There would be economic pressure, political backlash, perhaps even attempts to remove him from power. But already something extraordinary was happening. Other African nations were paying attention, reviewing their resource agreements, asking new questions. A movement was beginning, not one led by politicians or fueled by ideology, but by a growing understanding that sovereignty means nothing if a nation's wealth is drained while its people remain in poverty. 6 months after nationalization, gold production had returned to previous levels, but now the profits stayed in the country. New schools were opening, not just in Busura, but across Burkina Faso. Healthcare was improving. Long-stalled infrastructure projects were finally moving forward. Most importantly, a new hope had taken root. Children who might have been sent into mines were now in classrooms, dreaming of becoming engineers, doctors, and teachers. Workers who once labored for foreign corporations now felt ownership, pride in what they were building. In his office, Traoré reviewed progress reports daily. The economic figures were promising, but what moved him most were the human stories. A former child miner finishing primary school. A village uses mining revenue to build its first clean water system. Young Burkina engineers returning from abroad to serve their country. One evening, his aide announced an unexpected visitor. It was Musa Ouedraogo, the miner who had first spoken out about the horrors of Section 12. Mr. President, Ouedraogo said, awkward in his simple clothes, I came to thank you. My nephew, he was one of the children rescued from Busura. He's in school now. You're the one I should thank, Traoré replied. Your courage started all of this. Ouedraogo shook his head. I only spoke. You acted. Others heard the truth and looked away. You didn't. As Traoré watched the man leave, he thought about the weight of choice, the choice to investigate instead of ignore, the choice to confront the powerful instead of cooperate, the choice to protect children, not profits. When he had seen those children underground, there had only ever been one path he could take. It wasn't an easy path, but it was the right one. And now, whatever obstacles remained, he knew this. The gold of Burkina Faso would finally serve the people of Burkina Faso, and that was worth any price.